And it was in the cup holder at that point, correct?
Yes.
And you smelled alcohol in the cup?
Correct.
You thought it smelled very strong?
Correct.
But you didn't test the contents of the cup?
No.
You didn't take a taste of the cup?
No.
And you didn't dump out the contents of the cup?
No.
During the search, you found a bottle of cologne.
I don't remember.
Was seeing your body-worn camera refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Objection, relevance.
It's relevant, something she found in his car.
I'm going to objection relevance as to what element does it go to for the charges, and additionally, it would be outside the scope.
No, you asked about smell. This is a smell issue.
For cologne, nothing revolving around cologne was mentioned in her testimony.
No, it's a smell issue. If you...
It's fine, we can move on.
Y'all agree?
It's noted for the record.
For the record, response for defense, it came up that the officer searched the vehicle just for completeness purposes. We would argue that we would like to talk about the cologne that goes to smell, which we are questioning the officer on.
And just to clarify for state purposes, there's an objection to relevance. It's not relevant to prove a material fact at issue in this case. And
Response, as stated before, relevance is a little boring. We believe that this is relevant. You may proceed with this.
Just to...
Real quick, is it going to bother my mic if I fan myself? I'm sorry, I'm hot.
I can get you a fan if you need.
No, it's
Do
okay.
you want to step into the air conditioning for a minute?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
As long as this is not going to bother anybody or my testimony.
That's good.
Okay.
If you want to move it down a little bit.
This down a little bit. Sorry, I don't mean to be difficult. No problem. Okay.
Okay. So would watching your body-worn camera while you searched refresh your recollection?
Yes.
I'm playing her body-worn camera at the 15:30 minute mark.
I don't know. It smells very strong. This is cologne right here, though. It's like sprayed it like right before.
Having reviewed your body-worn camera, did you find a bottle of cologne in Mr. Riley's car?
According to my statement, yes.
And you smelled it before you even found it, is that correct?
I couldn't tell what I said there, but I remember hearing something about the smell of cologne. Correct.
And you stated that it was strong, the smell.
In the statement, yes.
And so you thought he had sprayed a lot of it.
I believe I said that it smelled like he sprayed it right before.
So right before you came up to the door is what you're suggesting?
I don't remember what my thought process was behind the statement.
But you remember that the smell of cologne was strong while you were searching the car.
According to my camera, correct.
And as we keep reiterating, you had your body-worn camera on during this entire interaction, correct?
Correct.
It's a policy of TPD to have body cameras on during criminal investigations, correct?
Correct.
This was a criminal investigation,
Correct.
but you didn't have it on for the entirety of the investigation, correct?
I did.
So that's your testimony here today that you had it on for the entirety of the investigation.
I believe I did. I only have one body camera.
So you did not turn your body-worn camera off at 2:37 a.m. on May 7, 2023.
I may have. I don't know the exact time of when I turned it off.
Would
have been whenever I was done with custody.
So when you would have been done with everything on the scene, custody of everything?
Except for the tow, correct.
So towing is in custody?
It was just towing his vehicle. I wasn't making contact with the defendant anymore.
But after you turned off your camera, you were still speaking with Officer Muth and Sergeant Smith about the case, correct?
I don't remember the conversation. It was over a year ago.
So you don't remember discussing indicators impairment that you saw in Mr. Riley?
I don't remember discussing that, no. But I could have, I don't know.
But your body-worn camera was off at that point.
Objection asked and answered.
I haven't asked that yet. So your body-worn camera would have been off at that point.
If things were discussed after I turned my body camera off, then yes, my body camera would have been off.
Did Officer Muth or Sergeant Smith ever convey you that their body-worn camera was on after you had turned yours off?
I don't remember.
So after you turned off your camera, you went to deal with Mr. Riley's car, correct? And that was because it was going to be towed.
Correct.
And you're careful when it comes to towing a suspect's car, correct?
Correct. Anybody's car.
That's because it could be a liability if something happens.
Objection.
Relevance.
It is relevant. It's what she did on the scene.
It's relevant to which element? Like,
It goes to
it's not relevant to any material fact in this case. What we're here to prove is whether or not the defendant was impaired, has normal faculties impaired, and whether he had knowledge that his driver's license was suspended. What happened to his vehicle when it's being towed is not relevant to any of those things. He's not at scene. He's not talking. The vehicle is actively being towed by somebody completely unrelated to this case, and therefore it's not relevant to any material fact in this case.
We would argue that it is relevant. Mr. Riley's car was searched and now is being towed. We believe that we can ask this question again, as stated before by the state. Relevance is a low bar. Everything can be relevant, and we would argue that this is.
Well, I will amend my objection to also outside the scope. There was no discussion other than her merely stating that his vehicle was towed. The discussion with law enforcement after the fact, in addition to what happened during the towing process, was never once discussed. So therefore, any discussion on this would also be outside the scope.
And the response would be that we talked about the vehicle. The vehicle has come up numerous times with direct and cross. We would argue that it is within the scope, and we can proceed with questions.
it's also relevant anytime that officers are handling evidence.
The objection will be noted for the record. You guys can go ahead.
So you're careful when it comes to towing a suspect's car, correct?
Correct.
And that's because it could be a liability if something happened to a car on your watch.
If I am responsible for the car at the time, yes.
You even made sure that Officer Muth had on her body-worn camera when she spoke with Mr. Riley about towing his car.
I'm sorry, can you say that question again?
So you made sure that Officer Muth had on her body-worn camera when Officer Muth, spoke to Mr. Riley about towing his car.
I can't make another officer have their body-worn camera on, but I may have said something to her that I don't remember.
Yeah, just
about
double
keeping it on.
check. And that's just a precautionary measure?
Correct.
But you didn't have on your camera when you went to deal with Mr. Riley's car being towed?
No.
Earlier when you were answering the state's questions, you mentioned that Mr. Riley's brother also lived at 429 West Brevard Street.
He mentioned that he was coming from his brother's and mentioned that address.
And you said that you couldn't verify that?
I didn't verify it.
Right. You didn't try to verify it, correct? I'm going to confer.
You doing okay?
You wanna crack the door for a second? Okay.
I just want to get this done.
Shouldn't be too much.
No, you're fine.
I know this might be a silly question, Officer Oliver, but you don't work with the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, correct?
No.
No. And you're not a medical doctor.
No.
You're the police officer,
Correct.
correct? And you're not a drug recognition expert.
No.
And Mr. Riley told you repeatedly that he didn't smoke weed, correct?
Correct.
And that's really what upset him, correct?
I don't know what was in his mind, but that was probably my perspective at the time. My thought process.
Also, it's very common for people to be upset when they're arrested,
Correct.
right? It's a upsetting thing.
Correct.
That's not a weird thing.
No.